Hey guys, so at first this video was going to be on how to draw smooth skin with colored pencils, but if you watch a lot of my videos, you know that I'm using pan pastels as a base layer, but I wanted to make this tutorial for people that only have colored pencils, so I'm only using colored pencils in this video. However, when I'm only use colored pencils, like I'm not used to doing that, so it was difficult for me to actually get the skin to look smooth. So I guess this is just going to be on how to draw skin with colored pencils, not smooth skin, just skin, I guess. And I already tried to make this tutorial on a previous drawing, and that one did not turn out smooth either. But this one is way smoother than the previous one, but actually the previous one was like on a darker skin tone. So if you would like to see on how to draw a darker skin tone, because obviously this one is lighter, as you can see, but if you want me to, I mean, I already have the footage, so if you want me to edit that and show you like how to draw a darker skin tone, I can totally do that. So what you want to do is you want to look at your reference photo and see what color is the lightest, and then you look at your collection of colored pencils and see what color is the most similar. That's pretty much the only thing I'm doing when I'm picking out colors. So what you want to do with the lightest pencil is to just draw a base layer. As I mentioned, I use pan pastels usually, but and in the past I used pro markers as a base to fill out the entire area that is supposed to be covered in skin, because when you make a base layer like this, I think it's kind of easier to make it look smoother, even though this tutorial was not supposed to be a smooth skin tutorial, but I'm doing it anyway. So since we're not using pan pastels or pro markers here, we're just gonna draw a base layer with the lightest colored pencil. And I'm not pushing hard with the pencil like into the paper. I'm doing kind of a thin layer. Then I'm picking a color that is one shade darker than the first one. And when I say one shade darker, I mean among the colors that I personally own, because I can only work with what I own. But in reality, like if you go to the store, this is probably not just one shade darker than the first shade. However, the difference here is that you're not going to color in the entire area of where the skin is supposed to be as you did with the first color, because you don't want to cover up the points that are supposed to be the lightest points, the highlights. So when you were picking out your first color, I told you to look at your reference photo and see what the lightest areas were, and what color you had that was the most similar to it. But this time I want you to look at the areas that are darker than the lightest areas and see, okay, what color is the lightest out of these, if you know what I mean. Like I hope I'm explaining it well, because when I was new to drawing, I was only listening to general advice, like, oh, the lightest points of the face is the forehead and the tip of the nose and the cheekbones and stuff like that. But after drawing a lot of different faces and using a lot of different reference photo, I've noticed that it's different depending on what reference photo you're using, because the light hits differently, like on the face of your reference photo in different photos. So I prefer to tell you how to think when you're picking out color, instead of just saying like, oh, this area should be this color and this area should be this color. It depends on the reference photo, but I'm just telling you how I'm thinking when I'm picking out colors, because I think that's better, I guess. And as you can see here, I actually filled in the cheeks with this second shade. because in the reference photo I didn't think the cheeks were as light as the lightest colored pencil that I used. So yeah, but I'm leaving the tip of the nose and also the upper part of the nose bridge. By the way, this color, the second shade, is the color that I own, that I think is like the best skin tone color for lighter skin tones. If they are more beige toned, I do have a pencil for more pink undertones, but I don't think I was using it for this drawing in particular, just because her skin was very beige, kind of yellowish, not so pink. So yes, and then I'm taking the same pencil and just adding another layer where I think it should be a little bit darker, basically. So then I picked up a polychromo actually. So this is in the color Cinnamon. It's kind of a brownish pink tone because I noticed in the reference photo that I saw some kind of brownish pink shade. So again, you want to look at your reference photo and see what colors you see, and then see if you have any color that's similar, and you kind of want to mimic that. So I'm just adding it to the shadows, or like I pay attention to obviously where I notice this particular shade in the reference photo, so I add it where I see it. Kind of. Yeah, I hope I can explain stuff quite well. But this color is also really good for blush. If you wanna, or if the person in your reference photo is wearing blush but it's not super pink, I really like that color. So then I'm using another color which is kind of a caramel shade, I guess. I'm not good at describing colors, but I'm using it just to darken up the shadows again. And as you can see, I'm drawing the forehead first. It's just what I like to do. I like to draw the forehead first, and I move on to another area. And yeah, it's just because I like to see one part complete when I'm drawing. It keeps me motivated. So then I'm actually going back in with that second color that I used. And this is because I like to do a lighter color, then I go darker and darker and stuff like that. And then I go back to a lighter color just to blend everything together. And I don't know if you noticed this, but it actually looks a lot smoother when I'm doing this. It looks, you can't really see the pencil strokes as much now. I'm trying to make it obvious by zooming in. So I hope you can see that this smooths everything out, and it's also thanks to this high quality pencil, and because it's so blendable and soft and creamy. So that's why I really like this brand of pencils. And yeah, I'm not sponsored, I just really like them, huge fan. So yeah, but even if you're not using this brand, still go back to the lighter colors and blend everything together, because it does make a difference in my opinion. I really like doing that. So around the lightest area of the forehead, I use I put a very thin layer of that second shade, and then I go back to the absolute lightest shade, the one that I used in the very beginning, and I just applied on top to blend all of that together, blend out the edges and all of that, so it's seamless and smooth. But then I also go back to a darker shade once again and darken up the shadows. And because these pencils are so creamy, they are way more blendable once you've built up the layers further. So This is not going to ruin the smooth areas, but I'm still gonna, after this, go back to a lighter shade and once again just smooth everything out. So I go light, darker, darker, light, and darker again, then lighter again. That's how I personally do it. Probably a lot of different ways to do it, but yeah, that's how I do it. That's my technique. Not saying that I invented it or anything, but yeah, it's the technique that I use. And just so nobody misunderstands me, when I say light, darker, darker, I don't mean I go 2 steps darker, but I just mean that I go darker and darker, and then when I feel like it's appropriate, I go light. Yeah, so then I take this shade which is a little bit cooler, so I don't add it to a lot of areas, just a few of them where I feel like it's needed. Then I go back with a light color and blend everything out so that it will be a better transition between the colors. So then I'm just moving on to another part of the face and doing the exact same thing. So I'm taking this second color again, creating another layer, creating shadows and stuff like that. And then I will be adding more shades and more color, and then I will be going back to this color again to blend everything out. Then, as you can see here, I'm using this polychromo called Cinnamon for the blush, because her blush was not very pink or anything. It was very subtle, so I think that it's a great color. So this step is kind of like doing makeup, because you're adding the color where you would add blush or bronzer. Here I'm actually using a very cool toned color, because I noticed that there were some cool tones here. It kind of looks purple, and it is kind of purple, but yeah, so I only added it to a small area. I think I mentioned it before, but unless I didn't, or in case I didn't, when you add different colors and different shades, it creates more depth and will make it look more realistic. So then I go in with this darker, caramel color, and I just add it where there are darker shadows. And again here, since we haven't added that light color, again, to blend everything out, you can see the pencil strokes very clearly, and just compare it to the forehead, and you can see that the forehead looks a lot smoother than the cheek. Then I go back to that darker color again and add another layer, because as I mentioned before, you want to add layers and build them up gradually. And here I'm using that lighter shade again and just blending a little bit. I'm not blending everything fully together, because there were still some shadows that needed to be done, but I'm just adding a little bit of it, so I'm not pressing very hard with the pencil or anything, just adding a little bit more color. Then I'm taking this cool tone again. So in your reference photo, if you're not using the same as I am, the colors like on the cheekbone may not be super cool. They may be warmer, so then you pick a warmer color. But I'm picking this color just because I noticed that there were some cool brownish, kind of a little bit ashy tones in this area that I'm drawing right now. So again, because sometimes it needs to be repeated, you need to look at the reference photo and see what colors are in there and see what you can do with what you have, the colors that you have, that is. So yeah, then I'm just adding a little bit more of that light color, and then I picked the absolute lightest color to blend that area out, as you could see. And I didn't think the cinnamon color was pink enough. I needed a little bit more pink, so I picked this one out of my Polychromo collection and just very lightly added it to the cheeks for blush. And then I continue with this caramel shade color kind of, and just continue to increase the shadows, building up layers, going back to that ashy brown and add a little bit more, and then I add a little bit more of that caramel color on top. I'm calling it caramel at this point. It's not called caramel, but yeah. And I just want to mention that you don't always have to go back to this light color when you want to blend out, because when you use this color, like, you will lighten up the areas a little bit, obviously, but in some areas you want it to still be dark, so you don't want to use a lot of this. So let's say you have 3 shades of color, so you have a light one, a medium one, and a dark one. And what I've shown you so far is that you use the light one, then you use the medium, then you use the dark, and then you go back to the light to blend it all out. But you don't have to go back to the light in some areas, that is, because obviously you want to go back to the lightest if you don't want to make it too dark. But if you want to keep it quite dark, you go back to the medium color and blend it out. I hope you understand what I'm saying, but yeah, so but I think it's a good technique to, you know, go back one shade at least to blend it all out. But it doesn't have to be the lightest shade, depending on how dark or light you want it to be. I also want to mention that I already have a video on how to draw a realistic eye in color, so in this video I will not include that part, but I will be linking that tutorial, of course. But yeah, I drew the eyes and the lips off camera because this is a skin tutorial. So after completing the eye, I just went back to the cheek and added some more shadows, because sometimes I find that when you, for instance, draw the forehead and the cheek and then the eye, once you draw the eye, you notice some parts of the cheek or maybe even the forehead that needs a little bit more shadow and depth and stuff. So you can just go back and add that, and just because of that, you don't want to blend way too much. But yeah, so be careful when you add more colors, because here I think I actually had blended quite a lot already, so it can be difficult to add more color once you've blended and make it look smooth and stuff. So I'm just being very careful. I think you can see that I'm using very thin and fine strokes here. And then I'm just doing pretty much the exact same thing on other parts of the face. Yeah, they're just different parts of the face, but I'm using the same principle. I'm using that second lightest color or whatever you're supposed to call it. Then I'm adding shadows with other shades that are darker, of different tones of color, and then I'm going back to the lighter color and all that stuff, and I'm leaving the lightest areas, you know, for instance on the tip of the nose and stuff, I'm leaving those areas pretty much alone. But otherwise I'm doing pretty much the exact same thing, so I don't think I will explain like a lot because it's just taking up time, and I don't know how long you want the video to be, so I'm gonna fast forward a little bit, but you can always slow down the video. YouTube has a tool where you can slow down the video, so yeah. But don't click out of this video just yet, because I have one tip that is going to make the skin look even smoother, so stay tuned. I will be showing that, but for those of you that just want to see like a time lapse of me drawing the rest of the face, you know, here you go. If you want a separate video on how to draw the nose, for instance, I can of course make that, but let me know in the comments if you want that. Otherwise, yeah, just keep on watching. I will start talking if there's, you know, a tip I feel like I need to mention, but yeah, otherwise just keep on watching. When you feel like you're kind of finished with adding more colors, I use these blender pencils as my last tool. The reason to why you want to make sure you're pretty much completely done with adding more colors is because that it's very difficult to add more colors on top of these. It works a little bit, but you want to be careful. And you also want to be careful when you're using this, because if you press too hard or, you know, slide it too much, it can mess up the drawing a little bit. So go slow and be gentle. So yeah, but this blends the colors together even more and makes everything look smoother. But of course, the paper that you use also affects how smooth your drawing will look, or the skin in your drawing. But yeah, So that's pretty much all that I had to say for this video. If you have any questions or think that something was unclear, then just leave a comment below and I will try to help you the best that I can. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you found it helpful, and if you did, then please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials. And yeah, that's all I had to say, so I will see you in my next video. Bye!